Empires almost never die from the outside. Somebody comes along eventually and kicks the door in, but the door was already rotting off its hinges, and the rot was an inside job. It is usually one decision, one man at the top who looks at the most powerful thing humans have ever built and decides to bet it on something stupid. Here are 5 of those decisions and the wreckage each one left behind. Persia invading Greece. It's 480 BC on the shore of the Hellespont, the narrow strip of water dividing Asia from Europe, and the most powerful man on earth is watching his engineers lash boats together to build a road across the sea. His name is Xerxes, King of Kings, ruler of the Achaemenid Empire, which at this moment is the largest the world has ever seen. It stretches from Egypt to the edge of India. He commands more men, more gold, and more land than anyone alive, and he is about to throw a piece of it into the ocean over a grudge. The grudge is his father's. 10 years earlier, the Persians tried to punish a cluster of small, quarrelsome Greek city-states and got humiliated at a beach called Marathon. Xerxes inherits the unfinished business along with the throne, and he decides he is not going to send a punishment force. He is going to send everything. The army he assembles is so large that ancient writers reach for numbers that stop meaning anything. Herodotus claims millions. The real figure is probably somewhere between 1 and 300,000, which is still the biggest invasion force the ancient world ever sees. To get them across the Hellespont, Xerxes builds 2 bridges out of hundreds of ships roped together, planked over, and packed with earth. When a storm smashes the first attempt, he reportedly orders the water itself to be whipped 300 times as punishment and has the engineers beheaded. Stop and look at that for a second. The man is so used to having absolute power over people that he tries to discipline the sea. That instinct, the belief that the universe answers to him, is the exact thing about to destroy his campaign. Because here is the problem nobody around him is allowed to say out loud. An army that size eats. It drinks. It has to be fed every single day, and the further it marches from Persia, the longer and thinner the line supplying it becomes. Xerxes brings a navy of hundreds of ships partly for this exact reason, to shadow the army along the coast and keep the food flowing. The whole invasion is a single enormous organism, and its lifeline runs along the water. At first it works. The Greeks make their famous stand at the pass of Thermopylae, where a small holding force, the 300 Spartans and several thousand allies, buys time before being wiped out. Xerxes burns Athens. From where he stands, this looks like a conquest going to plan. Then comes the Strait of Salamis. The remaining Greek fleet is cornered, or so it seems, in the narrow waters near Athens. Xerxes is so confident his navy will crush them that he has a throne carried up onto a hillside so he can watch the victory in comfort, with scribes ready to record the names of his best captains. It is the worst seat in history. The Greek ships are heavier, slower, and outnumbered, but their commander, Themistocles, has chosen the battlefield on purpose. In the cramped channel, the Persian fleet's numbers become a curse. Their ships crowd in behind each other with no room to turn, ramming, tangling, blocking their own lines. The lighter Greek triremes carve them apart. Xerxes watches from his throne as somewhere between 200 and 300 of his ships are destroyed in an afternoon. And the moment that navy breaks, the entire invasion breaks with it. No fleet means no supply line. No supply line means that gigantic army is now a starving mob, stranded in hostile country with winter coming. Xerxes does the math from his hillside and bolts, racing back to the Hellespont with a large part of his force, terrified the Greeks will sail ahead and burn his bridges, leaving him trapped in Europe. The army he leaves behind to finish the job is annihilated the next year at Plataea. The richest, biggest empire on earth is not beaten by a bigger empire. It is beaten by its own size, by a king who never once considered that the thing keeping his army alive was a single thread of ships, in that the Greeks only had to cut it once. Athens launching the Sicilian expedition. It's 415 BC in Athens, and the city is at the absolute peak of its power, which is exactly why it is about to commit suicide. Athens is the leader of a maritime empire, the dominant naval force in the Greek world, rich off silver mines and tribute. It has been locked in a grinding war with Sparta for 16 years, and a fragile truce is holding. The smart move, the obvious move, is to rest, rebuild, and not gamble. Instead, the city falls in love with a fantasy. A charismatic young aristocrat named Alcibiades stands up in the assembly and sells Athens on a dream. Far to the west, on the island of Sicily, there is a rich city called Syracuse. Conquer it, Alcibiades argues, and Athens gains its grain, its silver, its ships, enough resources to finally crush Sparta and rule the entire Greek world. It is bold, it is glorious. It will make Athens unstoppable. An older, cautious general named Nicias gets up and tries to talk them out of it. He warns that Sicily is enormous, far away, full of populous cities, and that even if they win, they will struggle to hold it. So he tries a trick. He tells the assembly that if they really insist on going, they will need a colossal force, far more men and ships than anyone imagined, hoping the sheer cost will scare them off. It does the opposite. The assembly hears the giant numbers and gets more excited. They vote not only to go, but to go bigger, and they put Nais, the man who hates the plan, in charge of executing it. This is the empire at its most arrogant, voting to launch the largest overseas expedition in Greek history into a place it barely understands, led by a general who thinks it is doomed. The fleet that sails is breathtaking. Well over 100 warships, thousands of hoplites, the cream of Athenian manpower, all rowing west into the sunset while the whole city lines the harbor to watch them go. It is the most beautiful and confident thing Athens ever does. Then it all rots. Before the fighting even starts, Alcibiades, the man who dreamed up the whole scheme, is recalled to Athens to stand trial on a religious scandal. Rather than face it, he defects to Sparta and starts advising the enemy on how to beat his own city. The expedition loses its visionary before it lands. Command falls to the cautious Nicias, who proceeds to run the campaign with the enthusiasm of a man attending his own funeral. The siege of Syracuse stalls. The Syracusans, helped by a Spartan general, fight back hard. Athens pours in reinforcements, a second whole fleet, doubling down on a losing bet. And then the trap closes. The Athenian fleet, the source of all their power, gets bottled up in the harbor of Syracuse and defeated at sea, the one place Athenians are supposed to be untouchable. With their ships gone, the entire army is stranded on a hostile island with no way home. They try to retreat by land. It becomes a death march. Harassed, starving, dying of thirst. Thousands are slaughtered at a river crossing where the water reportedly turns red and men keep drinking it anyway. The survivors, including Nicias, are captured and crammed into stone quarries, left to rot in the sun and die of disease and exposure. Of the tens of thousands who sailed out in that glittering fleet, almost none come home. Athens never recovers. It limps on for a few more years, but the flower of its navy and its young men is gone, dead in a quarry on the far side of the sea, all because a city at the height of its power could not resist betting everything on one beautiful, stupid dream. Rome's political militarization. It's 107 BC in Rome, and a general named Gaius Marius is about to fix a recruiting problem in a way that will eventually murder the Republic. Rome at this point is a republic, and proud of it. Power is deliberately split. Two consuls share the top job. They only serve a year, and the army belongs to the state, not to any one man. For centuries, the system has a built-in safety feature. To be a Roman soldier, you have to own property. You fight for the Republic because you literally own a piece of it. A farm, a stake, something worth defending. The problem is that Rome keeps needing more soldiers than it has property-owning citizens to fill the ranks. Marius, facing a manpower shortage, makes a fix that seems purely practical. He opens the legions to the poorest citizens, the men who own nothing. Just sign up. The state will arm you. It sounds like progress. It is a time bomb because a soldier who owns nothing is not fighting for his farm. He has no farm. He is fighting for pay and for the promise of land when he retires. And the person who gives him that pay and land is not the distant Senate. It is his general, the man who leads him, feeds him, and promises to set him up for life when the campaigns are over. In one administrative tweak, Marius accidentally changes who the army belongs to. The legions stop being loyal to Rome and start being loyal to whoever is paying them. The state has handed its monopoly on violence to individual ambitious men, and Rome is absolutely overflowing with individual ambitious men. It takes a generation for the bill to come due, and when it does, it is catastrophic. A general named Sulla, in a dispute over a command, does the previously unthinkable. He marches his loyal legions on the city of Rome itself, something no Roman has ever dared, because the soldiers now obey their general over the Senate. He takes the city by force, then has his enemies' names posted on lists in the forum. Anyone on the list can be legally killed for a reward. Thousands are hunted down and butchered for their property. The taboo is broken. Everyone has seen that Roman armies can be pointed at Rome. After that, the dominoes fall fast. Powerful men with loyal legions start carving up the republic between them. And the last and most famous of them is a general named Julius Caesar, who in 49 BC stands at a small river in northern Italy called the Rubicon, the legal boundary a general is forbidden to cross with his army. He crosses it. That single step is civil war. Caesar's legions, loyal to him and not the state, follow him against Rome itself, and he wins, and he makes himself dictator. The Senate murders him for it on the floor of their own meeting house, stabbing him 23 times. But killing the man does not fix the system. It just triggers another round of civil wars between generals with private armies, until one of them, Caesar's heir Octavian, wins the final round and ends the Republic for good by becoming Augustus, the first emperor. The Roman Republic does not get conquered. It gets eaten from the inside by its own soldiers. Over decades, all because of a recruiting fix that quietly transferred the loyalty of the army from the state to whoever signed the checks. Mongol Empire Succession Fragmentation. It's 1227, and the largest contiguous land empire in human history is about to discover that it has no working plan for what happens when its founder dies. Genghis Khan is the most successful conqueror who ever lived. Starting from nothing, an outcast on the steppe, he unites the Mongol tribes and unleashes them on the world, building an empire that stretches from the Pacific coast of China toward the Caspian Sea. His armies are unstoppable. His administration is, for its time, genuinely brilliant. He builds a system of fast riders carrying messages across thousands of miles. He tolerates different religions. He rewards talent over birth. What he does not build is a clear, ironclad rule for who rules after the Khan dies. The Mongols have a tradition that is the seed of the whole disaster. Among the steppe peoples, succession is not strictly automatic from father to oldest son. When a great Khan dies, a grand council called a Kurultai is supposed to gather all the most important princes and generals and choose the next great Khan from among the family. In theory, it picks the most capable man. In practice, it means every powerful relative with an army believes he might have a claim. While Genghis is alive, his sheer authority holds it together. He names a successor, his son Ogedei, and because everyone fears and respects Genghis, the transition holds. Ogedei takes power and the conquests continue, smashing into Russia and Eastern Europe. But the cracks are structural, and they widen with every generation. The empire is divided among Genghis's sons and grandsons into great chunks, each prince ruling a vast region in theory under the Great Khan, in practice running his own show. Every time a Great Khan dies, the whole machine has to stop. Armies on campaign thousands of miles away literally turn around and ride home so their commanders can attend the Kurultai and protect their claim. A European invasion is reportedly called off for exactly this reason, the death of a Khan pulling the army back east. Then comes the break that never heals. In 1259, the Great Khan Mongke dies, and two of his brothers, Kublai and Arakboke, both claim the throne. There is no rule to settle it cleanly, so they settle it the Mongol way, with a war between brothers. Kublai wins, but the unity is finished. The other branches of the family stop pretending to obey a single Great Khan. The empire fractures into four enormous pieces: Kublai's domain in China and the east, the Golden Horde in the Russian steppe, the Ilkhanate in Persia, the Chagatai Khanate in the center. They are no longer one empire taking orders from one man. They are four separate empires, increasingly suspicious of each other, sometimes openly at war with each other, adopting different religions and cultures and drifting apart. Each piece slowly weakens, gets absorbed, converts, or collapses over the following centuries. The unstoppable war machine that terrified the entire Eurasian landmass is never defeated in one great battle. It simply comes apart at the joints, because the man who built it never nailed down the single most important question an empire can face, which is who is in charge when the builder is gone. Ottoman rejection of structural reform. It's 1683 at the gates of Vienna, and the Ottoman Empire is making the high watermark of its power, a tide that is about to go out and never fully come back. For centuries, the Ottomans are a superpower. They take Constantinople in 1453, ending the Roman Empire's last surviving fragment. And they push deep into Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. At their height, they are richer, better organized, and militarily more fearsome than the fractured kingdoms of Christian Europe. Twice they march all the way to Vienna and lay siege to it. The second siege, in 1683, fails. A relief army shatters the Ottoman force outside the walls. And from roughly that point, the relationship between the Ottomans and Europe quietly, fatally inverts. This is the mistake, and it is a slow one, which makes it harder to see and impossible to stop. It is not one bad battle. It is centuries of not changing while your rivals change at speed. For a long time, the Ottoman system is a strength. A powerful conservative establishment, including an elite infantry corps called the Janissaries, and a deeply traditional religious and administrative class, keeps the empire stable and orderly. But stability curdles into rigidity. The same institutions that hold the empire together start to function mainly to protect themselves. The Janissaries, originally an elite fighting force, become a privileged caste more interested in their own pay and status than in modernizing. When sultans try to reform the military, to adopt the new European drill, weapons, and tactics that are racing ahead, the Janissaries and their allies resist, sometimes violently because reform threatens their position. Printing, which transforms Europe by spreading knowledge cheaply and fast, is heavily restricted for generations. The empire keeps doing things the way that worked in 1500, while Europe reinvents warfare, finance, manufacturing, and administration over and over. Meanwhile, Europe is on fire with change, the scientific revolution, new military techniques, banking and credit systems that let states borrow enormous sums to fund armies. The beginnings of industrialization that will eventually let a single European factory outproduce entire provinces. Every decade, the gap widens. And because it widens slowly, each individual Ottoman generation can tell itself the situation is fine. It is not fine. The empire that once terrified Europe starts losing wars, then losing territory, then losing the ability to collect taxes and control its own provinces. By the 1800s, it is so visibly behind that European diplomats start openly calling it the sick man of Europe, an invalid whose lands they are already arguing over how to divide. When the reformers finally do come, frantically trying to modernize the army and the state in the empire's last century, it is too little against too large a head start. The internal resistance has eaten too many decades. The First World War finishes what the long decline started, and the empire that lasted more than 600 years dissolves into the modern map of the Middle East. The Ottomans are not destroyed by a single catastrophe. They are destroyed by the most ordinary mistake there is, the decision, made again and again by people protecting what they had, to not change while the world changed around them. Look at the 5 of them side by side, and the pattern is almost insulting in how simple it is. A king who thought the universe answered to him and forgot his army had to eat. A city so drunk on its own power it bet everything on a dream and lost its sons in a quarry. A republic that handed its swords to individual men and was surprised when those men turned the swords on it. A conqueror who built a world and never decided who got it next. An empire that mistook standing still for staying strong. None of them are killed by a stronger enemy. Each one is handed the knife by the person at the very top, and in every case the empire is at or near its peak when the fatal choice gets made. That is the part worth remembering. The most dangerous moment for anything powerful is not when it is weak and afraid. It is the moment right after it wins, when it becomes convinced it cannot lose.